Buddy, what's interesting for me is your friggin' man cave that you're broadcasting from. That is just guy central. Here we are, another episode, Dr. B VIP. Okay, I'm here with Arjen Helder, co-founder of Recharge Health, driving innovative health technologies. And wait till you find out about this technology. It's one I'm very familiar with, but his product is unique. CTO, Chief Design and Inventor, Revolutionary Recovery Design Flexbeam, which, what do you see? Okay, and as extensive research development experience with light technology. Okay, all right, how did you get involved in this? Okay, what's your background?
So my background is in engineering. I'm an electronics design engineer, and I've designed quite a few different LED products and solar products and hi-fi products, all kinds of stuff. And I've been involved in manufacturing. And eventually we were making solar lanterns that were sold to the United Nations. And they asked me a question. They said, Arjen, is LED light harmful? Could it potentially be harmful? And I thought, that's a valid question, an interesting question. So let's dive into it and let's see. So first you look at the gold standard of light, which is the sun, and you look at the different wavelengths and colors that come from the sun and try to figure out what these different wavelengths can do. So I thought, I'll look into UV and then blue and then green and then orange and red and then infrared to see what these different lights can do, what these different wavelengths, what kind of properties do they have, how does our body respond to that? And I figured out that we had to change the kind of light that we were using in our solar lanterns because it was too blue. And if you use that at night, it keeps you awake. It prevents your melatonin from kicking in, and that's a bad thing. So I figured that one out first, and then we changed our light sources to be more warm white, so not have that blue peak in it so much. And then I thought, what about infrared? Because that's the opposite side of the spectrum. Does that have any function? Does that do anything? And when I started searching for this, I found so many different studies that looked into the effects of infrared light that I was intrigued. And I thought, I'm pretty good at making LED products, so it wouldn't be that hard for me to make something that uses infrared. But which wavelengths do I use? Which power levels do I use? How long you need to use it for to see any effects, etc. So I started experimenting with that, and actually it's kind of cool. I have here the first one I ever built, and it's not much to look at, but this product. Or not a product really, this sample that I made. This is the first one that I made, and it actually has 3 different wavelengths in there for me to experiment with. So I had some custom made LEDs, and I started experimenting with that to see, how does it work, and does it even work? Or because there are studies that show that there's very good benefits to be had, and there's other studies that are skeptical. So I tried figuring this out, and I quickly realized that it's a bit difficult for a person that studies biology to go into all these technical terms and translate that into a research paper that contains all the details that you need in order to make the study replicable. So I try and find the best studies, and I think Dr. Hamblin has probably got the best studies out there on this subject, and replicated them and started seeing some effects. And it was a really interesting time. So I spent basically 50% of my time reading studies and 50% of my time building stuff. And this was at the time that my daughter was born, my second daughter. So I had the night duty, the night shift, so to say. And every night, maybe 5-6 hours every night I had time, and I read all those studies to see what can I find out, and which kind of wavelength should I use, what kind of LED light should I use, etc. And it was a very interesting time for me to try and figure out if I could make this into something that would work.
Oh my God, how much fun. Okay. I mean, because this is what science is supposed to do. You're supposed to try and error, you know, and figure it out. It's super exciting because when we were remodeling our office, trying to find a full spectrum LED, one that has like least detrimental and most positive effect, that's what we got in our office. And it's to figure out how they produce white from an LED blew my mind. Okay, that there isn't a white LED.
No.
I had no idea because it looks white to me, you know, but fantastic. Okay, now what's the science and history? How's it applied to the Flexbeam?
Well, I mean, the history is actually way longer than you would think. Basically, in the 1960s, people started experimenting with lasers, which were, of course, brand new in those days. And the first guy to start doing experiments like this was called Andre Mester, and he was in Budapest. And he started doing experiments on lab rats to see if lasers were harmful or not. So what did he do? He took your standard Whistler rats, shaved the hair off the back, exposed them to the laser, and did sham exposures, and looked at the difference between the rats. And to his amazement, he figured out that the hair on the exposed rats grew back faster than the hairs on the sham exposures. So he was like, there must be something going on here. In hospitals today, you will still find laser treatment, infrared laser treatment devices. They still use them today. They've been using them for 40 plus years, and they're very effective. They're very useful. So that's a part of the history. In the West, we've been kind of dragging it along. It's been there's been a lot of research done. You can find thousands of studies on this subject. There's really a lot of studies that have gone into this. A lot of those studies have very good results, and yet only now can we finally see this kind of breaking through. Red light therapy devices now are starting to hit the mainstream, and people are starting to realize that this is actually a good thing. And yeah, it's maybe a little bit hard to imagine for people that light can actually go through your body. It can go in. And I have a lamp over here, so I'd like to demonstrate that a little bit here. So I have an LED light here, and if I put my hand in front of it, you can see the light actually shining through my fingers here. And as you can see, the light that shines through there, it's orange and it's red. And if you go even further down in the light spectrum, even longer wavelengths, do you get infrared light? They go down even further, because if I put my hand in front of it, you can see almost nothing goes through. That's because there is a component of red light in here, but there's no component of infrared light. And even if there was a component of infrared light, we can't see that. It goes beyond our visual spectrum. It's not visible for us. So that light can actually penetrate up to 10 centimeters deep into the body, where it has quite a few different effects. And those effects include the relaxation of muscle tissue, also the endothelial layer of the blood veins. So that means you can actually get vessel dilation just by putting the right kind of light on your blood vessels. You get better blood flow. Your blood viscosity improves, so it gets thinner. And that's because infrared light actually gives an electrical charge to the cells in the body. It actually enhances that charge. And that charge is very important because, as you know, the red blood cells, if they have the right amount of charge, they will repel each other, that electrostatic effect. And that's very important. It makes the blood flow better. It also exposes any kind of pathogens or bacteria or viruses that are hiding between blood cells that are clotted together. So that's a big plus. It therefore also helps with better oxygenation of your tissues. So I've had people here, for instance, that had no feeling, numbness in their hands, people that are diabetic. They often have blood flow problems. Using an infrared light, this is a big one that I made. So putting the hands in here, and had no feeling in his hands for years and years. So it's very hard for him. He can't use paper cups, for instance, because he has no idea how hard he squeezes the cup. And after 10 minutes, he started feeling a tingling coming on. And after 10 treatments, he got the feeling back in his fingers. This was very early on. And I was like, wow, what in the heck is this? This is amazing. So that's because the nerves are still there. They're deprived of oxygen because there's not enough blood flow. And if you can get that blood flow up and going again, nerves wake up again. That can recover itself.
We do live blood cell analysis. I've got 2 clinics, one in Huntington Beach, one in Tijuana. I'm at Tijuana now. We do live blood cell analysis all the time. And very few people understand that when you see red blood cells separate, then red blood cells start to attract to each other and get sticky. And sometimes they get stacked on one another. And to explain to people that there should be an electronegative charge where they repel each other, that you're in a stress state because of, a higher pH in the stomach, less amino acids, a bunch of different reasons. My gosh, this is going to be fantastic. But I mean, honest to God, because I'm familiar with red light therapy. We use it a couple of different things down here, but the mitochondria and ATP production. Can you explain how it affects that? Because this is where the entire body gets its energy. This is what makes you alive, is the mitochondria. They're the energy producers of your whole system. For anybody that doesn't understand that. And how does yours affect that?
Well, there's two main theories on how this actually work. Theory, the first is the most commonly accepted theory, is that you remove the nitric oxide from the hemoglobin. So basically, you get rid of nitric oxide that is occupying the spots where oxygen should be inside your mitochondria. So that's kind of blocking the oxygen uptake and therefore slowing down the ATP production. The other one, which I think is probably more correct, is that the mitochondria themselves, the membrane itself, has an electrical charge over it. And if you can increase that charge, you increase the speed at which the mitochondria can do its work. And there have been quite a few studies into what the percentage difference would be for red light therapy and how much does it boost it. And the claim is that you can get about 140% increase in ATP production from the mitochondria simply by irradiating it with the right wavelengths of infrared light.
Wow. Hey, you got to be familiar with Royal Rife's work back in the 30s.
Yes.
Okay. And like a quick background, he was trying to see smaller and smaller stuff with his microscope. And he found out that he was limited by the wavelength of light. So he changed the wavelength, looked at certain cells, and found out that matched a resonance or a frequency of some pathologic cells like cancer. And you could blow up cancer cells and other things based on the frequency of light. But yours, God, I'm so gosh darn excited to use yours. Now, what about EMF? Okay, and more about reducing EMF exposure, and how did this, because I'm looking at EMF now, electromagnetic frequencies or electromagnetic fields. Does this emit a negative of that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as an electronics designer, we have to look at these things very carefully because you want to have your device pass all the tests that are going to be done on it, right? If you want to have your UL and C logos on your device and you want to get those certificates, you have to design something that does not transmit any electrical signals. But in reality, every electronics device transmits signals because as soon as you have an electric field, as soon as you have electricity, you have an electric field, and that electric field will most likely not be a passive field. It will be an active field. It will be doing stuff. So I pay great attention to get the lowest possible EMF that we can get. And I have a spectrum analyzer in the back here that I use for that. And we go through many iterations of circuit board design to make sure that the EMFs are as low as we can get them. So for the Flexbeam, when I put that in my test chamber behind me, I cannot even see that it's there. It's absolutely mouse quiet. So for me, it's a very interesting subject. It's, I think, a very poorly understood subject. If you look at, for instance, safety testing of cell phones, and you see how it's just ridiculous, They just look at the specific absorption rate, like how much heat is generated in tissue due to the transmission of electromagnetic waves. And that's just a ridiculous oversimplification. It can't be that simple. It really can't be. So very close attention has been paid to that, because our device is worn on the skin. It touches your skin. And it touches your skin, and that's a good thing, because if you have a device that touches the skin, you get the same dose every time. And that's important. If you have a device that you need to stand in front of, if you move backwards even 5 or 10 centimeters, now you're going to get maybe 30–40% less light and less strength hitting your body. So you don't have a repeatable treatment method. So that's basically the main reason why I went for something that touches the skin, and it just made more sense to me.
Yeah, it's brilliant, because I've experimented around with light therapy for a long time, and one of the units I've got is you have to be 6 inches away. Okay, so if I'm 6 inches away, what is that? My chest or my shoulders back here? Okay, and then you got to move on your side, but then that's closer than the other sides, and then it's to have the direct contact is brilliant. If anyone's ever used this is spectacular. Okay, now I know it penetrates. Okay, I know it helps with ATP production. And if you want to go back and remember the Krebs cycle that occurs in the mitochondria, that was a nightmare. I hated biochemistry. Okay, digestive issues, okay, and the microbiome. So this gets the red blood cells separate. It helps the mitochondria produce ATP. Does it in the microbiome? This is huge, because this is bacteria, funguses, molds, everything that we need to keep ourselves alive. Yeah. Can you explain how this affects that?
Well, I mean, the same is true for your biome. I mean, we have so many different species of bacteria and viruses and fungi and everything else in our gut, and they also have ATP. They also need energy, and you want them to be healthy. So if you put the light on your stomach, which I do every day, it will help with that. It will help with digestion, and it also reduces inflammation. This is another big thing about infrared light therapy, is that you reduce inflammation simply by adding light. And inflammation in the gut is a major issue for a lot of people, and me included. I mean, I once was diagnosed with IBS, poor diet syndrome, and
that's exactly what it is, or high stress syndrome. Yeah.
Stress can be a thing too, but yeah, it helps for that. It reduces inflammation. That's a good thing. Of course, more blood flow in that area also means that you can absorb more nutrients. That's definitely a plus. And the blood flow thing is a big thing. I put it on my stomach, and after 5 minutes, I can feel the heartbeat in my stomach. So the blood flow is directed to the stomach, to that area, to your intestines. And that's, that's the proof of, hey, something's going on, something is happening here. So for me, that's a great way of using it. It's a very good preventative thing to do. And as you know, your immune system to a large degree is situated there. So it's an important thing to give that the right amount of energy that it needs. And it's a very good preventative maintenance thing to do.
I love the way you put it. Poor diet syndrome is IBS, inflammatory bowel syndrome. I mean, inflammation, what we tell our patients is the body is healing. It's the problem with inflammation is it creates free radicals that can damage healthy tissue. So this is why antioxidants have that deactivating property. When it comes to the ROS, the reactive oxidative species, can you explain that? Because this is one of the things that when people are just starting to understand disease, the process of disease, and how important the ROS is.
Well, the ROS is very important also concerning viral load, for instance. A lot of pathogens and viruses don't like oxygen because oxygen is very abrasive, right? It attacks pretty much everything. This is why your white blood cells use peroxide to attack things that they want to attack. If you can release that from your red blood cells, you can create an environment, a temporary environment, where if there's any pathogens around, they're not going to be very uncomfortable in that area. They're not going to like it. So it's kind of, you can call it the cleansing of blood in that sense, because you can create a circumstance in your blood by disassociating these gases and releasing them into the blood flow, that those gases start making it very uncomfortable for the things that you don't want to have there. I'm a skeptical person to begin with. So I would always like to see evidence. Like, okay, I want to know. I want to see. I mean, I have a microscope right here. I mean, let me show you. That's my screen. That's my microscope right there.
Mm-hmm.
It has dark field, and I am very interested in that kind of stuff. I need to know, but also I need to see it with my own eyes so that I know what I'm looking at, and I understand. You know, it's the best way, I think, to take the biases out of the game is by doing your own investigation and researching by yourself and trying to figure out, like an investigator, looking at the evidence and trying to find the most reasonable explanation for what you're seeing.
My God, this is the scientific method. I mean, I'm like a moth to your friggin' flame, brother. Okay, this has been so missing the last couple of years. You take a hypothesis, okay, and this is science for anybody that doesn't freaking know. You take a hypothesis and try and disprove it first. You don't want to just parrot everything else. You want to try and make it false. And if you can't prove it false, it's probably true.
Yeah, until something else comes along.
Until something else comes along.
Evidence, and you know, where you have a better understanding, a deeper understanding of what's going on. But yeah, that's the whole point of science, is to come up with something and then bombard it with whatever you can find and see if it holds. I'm totally on the same page there. So yeah, I'd like to know. I honestly, I would like to know, and I'd like to see that. I have a suspicion that there is a connection between the blood clotting that we see and lack of cell charge. And then the question would be, what causes the cell charge to drop?
Mm-hmm. I'd be curious of that, because I've seen studies on like a unipolar magnet, where it's the electronegative charge is touching the cells, and you see that the cells can transfer nutrients. Okay, so we know that they function better under, but the fact that they're not repelling each other. So I'm thinking low stomach acid might be a contributing factor. But when I was in school, I taught human dissection. And so I would have people say, well, arthritis happens when you're older. But I'd see arthritis in a 30-year-old cadaver and not see any arthritis in an 80-year-old cadaver. So that's wrong. Okay. So, that always discovering, always changing. God bless you. Okay. Sleep, I've got 6 videos on how to sleep. Sleep is when the body regenerates. And I tell people, sleep, you're never going to see people with cancer or chronic disease or anything wake up in the morning and say, God, I slept good. Yeah. How does this help? Because I think that's one of the most important things.
How does it help to make you sleep better? Well, I'll have to be honest with you. I have no idea why this works. I really don't know. But I do know that it works a treat. Mm-hmm. And that's the interesting bit. And we've been testing on people. We've been giving people Aura rings. I don't know if you're familiar with those. Mm-hmm. They measure your HRV throughout the night. And we have been giving them Flexbeams to see, does it have an impact on sleep? And we can see that the REM sleep is extended and that people get a better night's rest when they use infrared light before they go to bed. I mean, I use it every night, and I've been using it every night since the device is ready. And I can't freaking sleep without it now. And it helps me a lot. I'm a terrible sleeper. I really am. I ruminate a lot. I think a lot, and especially when I'm in bed. And normally for me is I put it on the back of my shoulders or on my spine, and 10-15 minutes and I'm gone. So for me, it's made a tremendous influence. And I know for a lot of the people that have our devices, it makes a lot of difference for them too. We have about 6,500 units out in the field right now that have been sold and people are using. And one of the major feedback things that we get is that people simply sleep a lot better. But I can't tell you why. I don't know why.
I'm curious too. Do you generally, like when you're talking to people that are using the product, because I'm going to be ordering a bunch of these, okay, and I'm going to be experimenting around on so many patients. So I mean, this is, I think, phenomenal unit. Have you asked people if they put it on different areas and get a similar result? So like in sleep patterns, if they're in a sympathetic dominant state, putting it on the back, upper shoulders, down the spine, that's the sympathetic nervous system, and that's the fight or flight. Some people might put it on the gut, possibly to generate, so that's neurotransmitter production. It might have a more blood supply going to the gut, and the gut is under parasympathetic nervous system. So it would make sense that each person might have a variation on where they're going to put it to get a similar effect.
I'm pretty sure that that's the case. And I think I always caution to give people a lot of very detailed advice on what to do. And my approach is normally is you need to teach people to listen to their body. They need to listen. And it's a thing. And I know that you know, but I mean, this is such a fundamental thing. It's so important to try and enhance your consciousness about what your body is trying to tell you, because your body's talking to you all the time. And we've basically learned how to ignore it, I guess, in the last maybe 100 years, I don't know. But you can feel it, and you'll know when you know. If it's a difference that makes a difference, you're doing it right. And this is what I try to instill in people that come with questions. And some people have lots of questions. Some people are maybe a little bit insecure and are a little bit scared to maybe do it wrong or do something that maybe they're scared of harm or whatever else. Well, the good news is this, it's very hard to harm with this. It really is. I haven't had any issues with that, with people that came back and that said, oh, no, this device harmed me. You need to listen to your body. So for me, it's like, okay, I experiment, I try a couple things out, and what works best for me? Well, what works best for me? Spine, no doubt. For sleep, I put it on the spine, I lay on my stomach, and it's awesome. You get this really nice swoon feeling that sets in, and it just takes you away. So that for me, that's very good. For some other people, I've heard chest works well for them. They put it on their upper chest, and it calms them down and it helps them to get to sleep. So yeah, but sleep is a huge thing. I mean, for any kind of recovery, if your sleep isn't working well, if you can't sleep well, you can't recover. It's just not going to happen.
When people ask me, how much vitamin D should I take? How much vitamin C? How much vitamin E? And I'll say the best doctor is inside of you. You're going to know, I can recommend what it says on the bottle, but that's really pulled at nobody has any idea at how much nutrients you need on a daily basis. Because if you slept good, you're going to need some type. If you're under high stress, you're going to need another type. So listen to the doctor within. That's the smartest doctor you're ever going to meet. And
yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Vitamin D is a good example. I mean, and there's a lot of people that simply genetically are not so good at absorbing vitamin D. Mm-hmm. Right? It depends on where you're from. If you're from a very hot, sunny place, chances are that your absorption ratio is going to be quite minimal because your body always had enough sunshine for God knows how many generations. And maybe now you live in Wisconsin or something, or, or in Calgary. And throughout the winter, you don't feel well and you're easy to get sick, etc. And you just supplement, but maybe you need to triple your supplements because your particular biome isn't so good at converting vitamin D.
And you're a Northern European guy living in Thailand now. Why didn't I meet you there? Yeah. Buddy, I was there 4 weeks ago. I didn't know you existed in the world. You are cool. Oh my God. Okay. How can people purchase this?
So when you buy one of these things, it comes in a nice case, and the device is portable. You can bring it. It has 3 settings, which is basically skin, intermediate, or deep. And it's got fans in it, so you can hear it buzz. So you can see here, you got your light units. One of the things I haven't actually mentioned yet is, let's say you have a wrist injury or wrist pain. If you do this, guess how much more light is going to get into that wrist?
Everything.
Through a flat panel that you put your wrist in front of. And now you're quite literally injecting that light into your wrist. It's way more effective that way. Way, way, way more effective. And you can just go about your day. You don't have to stand in front of something. You can strap this thing on. The product comes with straps, so you can just strap it on and do what you do. And what that means is really a big deal. Of course, compliance is a big deal. You buy this thing, are you going to use it? Well, if it's convenient to use for you, you're probably going to use it. And if you feel that it works, but if it's inconvenient, you're never going to get enough time with the device to get the benefits. Thus, you don't really realize that it could be really useful because you're simply not spending enough time using it. So that's one thing about this design is because it's a portable device, it's battery powered, you're actually going to use it because you're going to just strap it on and go about your day.
And how long are the treatment times? Like, how long do you need to leave it on?
It's 10 minutes and it times by itself, and it's not just on or off. It's actually a dynamic treatment protocol that the device goes through. So it basically every one of the 3 sessions, it slowly ramps up and it pulses at certain frequencies, 40 hertz, 10 hertz, and then it comes down again, and then your session is finished. And then there's 3 settings, and the 3rd setting is basically is no pulsing. It's just ramp up, plateau, and then ramp down.
Okay, if anybody's curious, when we use, because I taught physiotherapy for a while, each tissue on the body responds to a different frequency. So 10 cycles a second will affect ligaments, 60 affect the muscles, 100 affect the nerves. So the fact that it ramps up and ramps down is brilliant. I don't know. It's one of those. Okay, because you're going to affect multiple tissues by multiple, and basically sunlight has got a similar frequencies coming out, and we're designed to be in sunlight. So
and imagine, I mean, I'm pretty lucky living in Thailand where I have full access to the sun year round. But I'm from Holland, okay? So we have pretty dark winters in Holland. And every winter I would have the winter blues. Every single winter again, it would happen. As soon as I moved to Asia, gone, never came back, never had a single winter depression ever again. And it shows you how important light actually is. People don't realize human beings are as dependent on light as plants. There's no difference.
Amen. And so it's battery operated. Each session takes 10 minutes. How many sessions per charge?
You get on the maximum power, you get 6 sessions per charge. And then on setting 1 and 2, you get around 10.
Okay, so let's say somebody commutes 45 minutes, which is common in my area, and they have inflammatory bowel disease. You just got adjusted. I give you an exerciser to turn driving into therapy. Wouldn't it be cool to just have this in your car?
I have one in my car.
Just oh my God. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Now, what site can they reach you at? How can they get this? And I know that there is a $50 off special.
There is. You can go to recharge.health. Recharge.health. That's our website.
Okay. Just for the heck of it.
Yep.
This is what I've been looking at, and I got to tell you, the other I've been looking into light for years. I can't believe that cat. This is like a synergistic. This is fantastic.
I've been watching your videos for years. I love your approach. You and I have a lot of similarity in how we tackle problems, and I think it's because I ever started my career as a repair guy. And it's the same thing, man. It's the same it's the same logic, the same way of thinking. You're trying to find evidence for certain things, and you go along that path, and you try to exclude certain things, and then you try to, kind of estimate which direction you need to go in, and you do that on, well, where it comes to healthcare, of course, you need to be very multifaceted, right? Because it's never just one thing. That's also something that's definitely my slogan where it comes to, doesn't matter what device you got, doesn't matter what supplement you got, it's never just one thing. And what I really like about what this device does and what red light therapy does for people is they get the hope, because they all of a sudden have a reduction in pain. They get the hope that, hey, maybe it's not just going to be downhill all the time. I can go uphill a little bit. That's great. I'm going to make some improvement now. And what you see is that people then start thinking, what else can I do to help myself? They start getting genuinely interested because they have now noticed that they're doing their choice to pick up a device like this is a decision that they made that made a positive influence. So there must be other decisions that they can make to further their healing. And what I've seen over the last 2-3 years is for many people is that it was downhill until they picked up one of these things. And then they realized, okay, now it's getting a little bit better. And then it plateaued. And then they called me, Arjen, I had great progress. Now I'm 4 months in, the pain is significantly reduced, but I feel that it's not moving anymore. I have plateaued. What can I do? And I'm like, hey, do you mind if I look in your fridge? And I do. I go there. I go to their house. I open the pantry. I open the fridge. I throw away 50% of the garbage that's in there. I'm like, okay, this is your next step. Do this until you plateau and call me again. And so it's never a thing. It's the combination of factors that you need to tune for your body to do what it always does and always wants to do. Your body wants to fix itself, but there are things standing in the way, and you need to figure out what those things are and how you can remove them. And that's not going to be just one thing. That's going to be a couple of things that perhaps are seemingly unrelated, but are all contributing to the problem not being fixed.
Oh my God, brilliant. We talk about, in fact, I just had a doc from Thailand because I was there 4 weeks ago, observing, finding out what we're doing. And she asked me, she said, well, what about a standard, it's called a CBC blood analysis. And I said, well, think about it. If they have high cortisol, or if they have a low thyroid, or if they have inflammatory bowel, or if they have high blood pressure, those aren't diseases, those are adaptations. So you have to look for the physical, chemical, and emotional stressor. And you find those, you find the source of the body adapting, because the body does this unit here, honest to God, just brilliant. It's portable, it's effective, it helps with mitochondria, which is your energy production. It helps the blood. The blood health is literally, that's your immune system, that's your brain. This is going to help with autistic kids. I want to try it with everybody. What do you, because I'm gonna be promoting you like crazy, and you're right, you have a practical understanding of the world. You're used to solving problems.
Yeah. Right. And this is just another problem. And maybe because I haven't gone through, I mean, I'm not a doctor, obviously, right? I'm a nerd. But because of that attitude and that way of thinking, I think it's possible to solve a lot of problems simply by listening and observing and steering things in the right direction. And this is one of those things. Of course, I'm working on more stuff. I have more interests than only the Flexbeam. In the future, we will be making different products that are going to be pretty targeted. This thing, okay, it's great for the people that buy it. It's not so great for us selling it. This device can do a lot. It's very versatile. I call it the Swiss Army knife of red light therapy products. You can almost open a wine bottle at this thing. But it's also a little bit difficult to explain to people, because most people think, well, if it works for everything, that's unlikely, right? It kind of sounds like snake oil to people. And I get that. I mean, of course, and I understand that people are skeptical because there's a lot of weird stuff in the market as well. I think in the future, we will be focusing a little bit more on specific products, so targeted products. You know, you have one problem and I make a custom solution for that. So more to come. Yeah. And
I'm going to be promoting this because people will say, well, how come when I adjust here, my sinuses get better and my blood pressure get better and my digestion gets better? That's snake oil. You can't just have one pain here. And, you know, the way I explained it is, look, if I'm going to give you a goji berry salad, you know, fantastic food, but I'm standing on your feet while you're eating it, are you going to get the absorption? You know, no. Okay, good. So we got to look at what's stressing you out and fix that.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God, Arjen, this has been such a pleasure talking to you. I mean, refreshing. Good God, you're what scientists have always meant to be. You know, it's because you're just making a difference. We are going to be working together. I know we are, for sure. And yeah. So go to Recharge Health.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's going to be a description in the video below, whether it can be censored or we'll edit out that part that we were talking about.
Dude, it's been so weird the last 2 years. What I've seen happening is just, wow. I don't know where to start. It's, dramatic, really dramatic.
Yeah, and it's going to happen again. It's going to get worse, and then more and more people are slowly going to wake up. But thank God you're on the side of light. You are the light, my brother, buddy. This has been fantastic, and I know it's what is it, like 1 o'clock in the morning where you are now?
If only that were true. It's more like 3 in the morning.
3 in the morning. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for being for hanging in there. You are remarkably fresh for 3 a.m.
Not too bad, right?
God bless you, man. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to part 2.
Awesome. Let's do it.
If you can hear my voice, you are part of the resistance.